So, as we expected, the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship. But that's not going to be the end of this shit because black Americans have been in America for a long time. So we know how our country works. So, y'all who immigrated here and you had kids here, etc., I'm going to tell y'all what they finna do. Okay, and I know y'all gonna argue and say, no, that's not gonna happen, etc., because y'all don't listen until the shit fucking happens. They finna starve y'all out. They finna starve y'all out. They gonna make it so that you cannot work. Okay? They're gonna make it so that you cannot get public assistance, even though your child is a U.S. citizen and is entitled to benefits. You will have to go into the office to get the benefits. And when you go in the office and get the benefits, they have your information. And they will deport the parents. We're going to have to see an increase in social workers because there are going to be a lot of kids in foster care because y'all don't like to take y'all kids with you. That's just the truth of it. A lot of y'all ain't going to want to take your kids with you because you think they have a better life in America. So it's going to be an increase in children in the foster care system. Okay? Because they're American citizens, they can't be taken nowhere. But that's what they getting ready to hit these folk with. They gonna deport their parents. That's the truth. They will not let. They have no legal obligations to allow the parents to stay. They have no legal obligations to do that. They absolutely will deport the parents. Okay, and then like I said, they're gonna restrict you working. They're gonna restrict you having driver's licenses and shit. They're gonna make it very difficult. They gonna make y'all walk real hard. That cakewalk shit that was happening prior, it ain't gonna go down like that. It ain't gonna go down like that. They're gonna move y'all right on up out of here. Okay? So you know, and so it has been said, how the fuck this shit gonna go, so there's no surprises. Don't say ain't nobody told you. Have a good day. They gonna shut all that other shit down. You won't be able to get no businesses, none of that shit. They shut all that shit down. Anything that you have to put your name and information on in regard to the government, they gonna be running everybody's shit. Social services has already started this process. The housing authority has already started this process. Medicaid, all that shit, they done already started this process. They got your information. When you go and you got to put, what type of citizen you are, et cetera, like on employments and on employment and benefits and stuff like that, they got all y'all information. Okay? So yeah, they gonna be running down. They're gonna be running around here running down on y'all. Just so you know. Okay? The American government always has a plan B, and they was ready for the plan B. Okay? And now y'all about to see their plan B. Okay? So, before y'all get to hooting and hollering, know that Jesse told you first.
Let me explain this whole US birthright citizenship situation, especially if you're thinking about moving or having kids in the US. It's kind of a big deal, eh? Right now, the way it works is pretty simple. If you're born in the US, you're automatically a US citizen. That's thanks to the 14th Amendment, which has been around since 1868. It doesn't matter if your parents are citizens, on visas, or even undocumented. If you're born there, you're in. But here's where it gets tricky. President Donald Trump signed an executive order trying to change that. Basically, he wants to make it so that babies born in the US don't automatically get citizenship unless at least one of their parents is a US citizen or a permanent resident. And get this, it wouldn't just apply to people there illegally. It could even affect kids of people legally in the US, like those on a work or student visas. If that sounds like a mess, it's because it is. Imagine this. Every baby born in the US would need proof that their parents are in the country legally before they could even get a birth certificate or citizenship documents. And let's be real, the paperwork and red tape that would create would be insane. Not just for immigrants, but for everyone. Now, can Donald Trump actually do this? Probably not, at least not through an executive order. Birthright citizenship is part of the Constitution, and changing that would take a constitutional amendment or a big Supreme Court decision. It's not something you can just sign into law overnight. But even if this order doesn't hold up in court, the fact that it's even being pushed is enough to make a lot of people nervous. It's creating fear for immigrants. Imagine being on a visa and not knowing if your child would even have a legal status if they're born in the US. And don't even get me started on the idea of restricting visas for pregnant travelers. At the end of the day, this is all part of a bigger push to make immigration harder, plain and simple. It doesn't actually solve anything, but it sure makes life more complicated for people trying to do things the right way. So if you're an immigrant or thinking about moving to the US, this is something to keep an eye on. Talk to an immigration expert, stay informed, and make sure you know your rights. Because these kinds of policies can make things confusing fast. Your consultant and partner in this journey, Shefali Kapoor.
Raggedy as hell that my people had to fight like hell just to get the 14th Amendment, only for you liberal fucks to apply it to a bunch of people that just got here. I'm sick and tired of other people skipping the damn line where black folks in this country still be dealing with goofy ass shit. And we gotta hear about, the Mexicans, and everybody else in the goddamn world.
If I had a goddamn rock, I'd throw it at your head.
Somebody tell me why illegal immigrants that come over here and purposely have kids over here, knowing good and well, my God, that you could be sent back to your country, knowing good and well that this is a turmoil, knowing good and well you're not really a citizen. Basically, you're putting your children in harm's way. Let me tell you what happens to American citizens when they think we've harmed our children. They take our children and put them in CPS. I know a lot of Americans just don't understand this because you've never cared that the CPS system is full of American children that have been taken either because their families were crap or because CPS. If CPS thinks that you're not fit to take care of your children or whatever the case may be, Americans are subject to harshness when it comes to our children. Let me say that first and foremost. And a lot of times CPS be so far off, they be yanking our kids and all this, and they it's just a whole nother rabbit hole I can go on down. But to leave a country, to have children in another country that you are not a citizen, to me that would be the scariest thing. I don't see how that's safe. I don't see how you feel safe doing that. That would be the scariest thing to me. And it also really, when I look at it, it screams bad parent. It screams CPS gonna take them kids anyway if they found this out, because they take American kids for less than that. I'm just saying, how are they being looked at as great, awesome parents, but immediately boring your kids into danger? On purpose. Specifically on purpose. I don't get that.
You tell me what you disagree with when it comes to Justice Clarence Thomas, because everything that he wrote in his dissent makes complete sense to me. Y'all want to extend these rights to everybody. I keep on telling y'all, black Americans have an orphan spirit on y'all. This is our country. This is our land. We are from here. We have no other allegiance to any other place. I don't know about you, but I don't got cousins overseas unless they're serving in the military for the United States of America. It was the dissimilarity of American blacks to foreigners that Frederick Douglass emphasized in his call for recognizing the citizenship of blacks. We address you not as aliens or as exiles, humbly asking to be permitted to dwell among you in peace. Blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. They had no other homeland, owed no other allegiance to any foreign power, and were subject to no other authority. They fought and bled in the same battles, gained and gloried in the same victories, and were liable to be called upon to defend America in time of war alongside every other citizen. The same cannot be said for the children of foreign temporary visitors. Foreign temporary visitors were attached to their home country, lacked similar bonds to this country, and would not be called upon in time of war. Americans, consistent with their settler ethos, believed that citizens were the people who called a place home. Accordingly, domicile, a person's legal home, played a key role in both state and national citizenship in America. A person was a citizen of the state where he had his domicile. Of course, birthplace closely correlated with domicile. Most children were born where their parents were domiciled and where, as a result, they were domiciled. The correlation was especially strong in the early 19th century when crossing an ocean for a temporary visit was an unappealing prospect for pregnant women. The law of domicile is essential to understanding the citizenship provisions of the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. So I briefly explained the relevant parts of the law of domicile here. Domicile meant legal home. The most common definition of domicile was residence with the intent to permanently remain. Because a person could have only one domicile, domicile was a natural criterion for citizenship. In the 19th century, dual citizenship was considered highly undesirable, if not a contradiction in terms. The principle that citizenship followed domicile also made it more likely that citizens would be attached to their country. As Alexander Hamilton envisioned it, the citizenry were the people who would join together against any threat, a large body of citizens who stand ready to defend their own rights and those of fellow citizens. Black slaves and freedmen alike were unambiguously Americans. They were not foreigners. They were not aliens. They owed no foreign allegiance. Our ancestors lived and died, fought and bled, survived, so that we could have freedoms that we're still trying to get used to, that we still have not figured out how to walk in 100%. And y'all are just ready to hand our freedoms that our ancestors fought for over all these other people who coming from these communist ass countries and are tearing up our country before we learn how to appreciate it. But if we're just now figuring out, we're just now getting our footing, y'all just now figuring out how to damn scam or whatever, however it is y'all want to get y'all money, y'all just now figuring that out. I don't believe that people should be able to illegally cross our borders and have a baby over here, and then that baby automatically becomes a citizen, and then that baby is attached to non-citizen parents, so then that baby and its entire non-citizen family, it gets to take up all of our resources. That's not fair. That is not fair, and it is not right. And they do not show respect to the Black American. Black Americans struggle showing respect to one another. So we know these foreigners ain't coming over here and showing us respect. They're coming over here taking over our land, taking up our resources, and sending it back to their country to which they still have allegiance. That's what I have to say about that.
I approach him with my love the kindness of a stranger. Not a pay picket. 100%. 100%. All of me for all of you, body and soul. All of me for all of you, body and soul. I approach him with my hand out. Hey! I always love the kindness of a stranger. Hey! Not a baby. 100%. 100%. Hey! Not a baby. 100%. 100%. All of me for all of you, body and soul. All of me for all of you, body and soul.
All right, y'all. Thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of the Cellulite Podcast. It is greatly appreciated that each and every last one of you are here. If you will be so kind as to share out the stream and like the stream, it is greatly appreciated. We are thankful to each and every last one of the people who show love and support to the channel by liking the stream and also by sharing it out and subscribing. It is not a requirement, but it is greatly appreciated when people do so. Unfortunately, I have to take this moment, just like I have to do every now and again, since we have come back to YouTube after being previously illegitimately terminated. I have to take this time to also recognize the community guidelines and the YouTube terms of services. This channel and the commentary that I provide and of others join the panel that they provide is strictly to be educational. It is not to be harmful, nor to harass or any type of bullying to anyone. The comments and concerns and the thoughts and the processes and the perspectives that is expressed on this channel is simply for entertainment and for educational purposes. With that being said, welcome everybody to the Cellulite Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for being here. Now, with that being said, let me go ahead and say this. Shout out to my lovely wife in the chat. My lovely wife in the chat, always providing me with love and support and great stewardship. But the beautiful thing about all of this is that this is not a one-man show. We are a community. We are a team of people who comes together, and we like to actually shift through the minutia and actually get down to the bare bones of the content. With that being said, it's a few things that we need to discuss today. One of those things that we need to discuss today is the recent ruling on the Trump v. Barber case when it comes to birthright citizenship. Now, some people may have went through, and I don't know if y'all seen all of the videos that we played during the intro of the stream, but there was a very specific detail that was missed out on that dissent from all of the judges from the Supreme Court. And it was literally, I would say, I want to zone in on what Judge Clarence Thomas specifically said. Judge Clarence Thomas wrote a dissent, a detailed dissent, arguing that the majority, the Supreme Court, got the original meaning of the Citizenship Clause wrong. He believes that the 14th Amendment does not automatically grant citizenship to every child born on United States soil. Now, there's a reason that, he believes this, and there's a reason that he comes with this argument because of a very specific case called Calvin's case. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Calvin's case before, but I'll go ahead and I'll show it on the screen for you right quick. Calvin's case, also known as the case of the Postanini, the case of the Postnati, was a 1608 English legal decision establishing that a child born in Scotland after the union of the crowns under King James the Sixth and the First in 1603 was considered under the common law to be an English subject and entitled to the benefits of English law. Calvin's case was eventually adopted by courts in the United States, and the case played an important role in shaping the American rule of birthright citizenship, also known as jus soli, or law of the soil, or citizenship by virtue of birth within the territory of a foreign state. Now, there's a clear breakdown that can be easily understood when it comes to this whole entire thing about birthright citizenship. The first thing that we want to cover is the Citizenship Clause, or rather the purpose of the Citizenship Clause, which was to protect people who actually belong here. In other words, those of us who are born here on American soil, who our parents was born here on American soil. That's what it was supposed to be about, specifically for slavery. That's why the 14th Amendment came about. And shout out to everyone in the chat. I greatly appreciate each and every last one of y'all being here. But Thomas starts with the historical context that the 14th Amendment was passed after the Civil War to overturn the Dred v. Scott, or Dred Scott v. Stanford case, which I can go ahead and pull that up for you right quick. So in the Dred Scott versus Sanford case, which was in 1857, what it did was it guaranteed citizenship to freed Black Americans. These formerly enslaved people had no other homeland. they were domiciled in the United States, owed no allegiance to any foreign country, and had fought for America. Thomas specifically argues during his dissent that the clause was written to make sure people like them, who were permanent members of American society, could never again be treated as non-U.S. citizens or non-citizens. It was not primarily designed to hand citizenship to children of temporary visitors or people whose real ties were to another country. Ergo, if you come from Venezuela, if you come from Russia, if you come from any other country other than America, you cannot just come here and be born here. Your parents can, give birth to you here, and now automatically you're a United States citizen. He points to statements from key figures in the 39th Congress at the time. We got Senator Lyman Trumbull, right, who was a sponsor, said that Congress would have no right to make citizens of persons temporarily that was residents. And also, Representative John Bingham and others repeatedly described citizenship in terms of people who were born and domiciled in the United States. So then he goes along and he says that subject to jurisdiction, which is the main point of argument from the Trump administration about birthright citizenship, which this is a key point. I really have to hone in on subject to the jurisdiction. It means more than just being physically present. This is the heart of Thomas's textualization and historical argument. The clause says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction, therefore, are citizens. Thomas says that subject to jurisdiction is not satisfied by mere physical presence or having to obey some U.S. laws while there. It requires a deeper connection, a deeper meaning. Essentially, that the person's primarily allegiance and legal home is the United States of America. He draws on early American law, showing that domicile or permanent legal home was central to both state and national citizenship. Specifically, in the Barber v. Barber case of 1859, the court linked citizenship to domicile. In the Venus 1854 and the Pizarro 1817, the court explained that a person's national character followed their domicile. Temporary visitors remained attached to their home country, right? And then pull this case back up so we can actually know that we're speaking from the case and from the dissent. And that treaties and cases from the era treated children as following their parents' domicile for citizenship purposes. So Thomas argues that children of temporary visitors or illegal immigrants generally do not meet the standard because their parents remain subject to the power and the allegiance of their home country. He strongly rejects the majority's reliance on English federal law and Lynch v. Clark. Now, Lynch v. Clark is another very important case that really needs to be studied when it comes to this whole entire idea about birthright citizenship. But I don't want to spend too much time and bore everyone with that, so I'll just give you the quick rundown. Lynch v. Clark of 1844 is a landmark New York State court decision that established birthright citizenship in the United States. The ruling held that any child born within the country's borders is a natural-born citizen, regardless of whether their parents were non-citizens or merely just visiting. The historical background to this is that the case involved Julian Lynch, a girl born in New York to Irish parents who were in the United States as temporary visitors. After her birth, Lynch returned to Ireland. The legal question arose regarding her right to inherit property in New York, which hinged upon whether she was considered an American citizen. The legal significance behind this was that the presiding vice chancellor, Louis Sanford, ruled in favor of Lynch, declaring that under the English common law, which was adopted by the United States, birth in the country automatically confers citizenship. In his opinion, Judge Sanford asserted, I can entertain no doubt, but that by the law of the United States, every person born within the dominions and allegiance of the United States, where the situation of his parents, is a natural born U.S. citizen. The constitutional impact was that this case was served as one of the most critical precedents cited by abolitionists and the framers of the 14th Amendment when the Citizenship Clause was debated and ratified in 1868 to guarantee that all persons born in the United States are citizens. The legal reasoning established in Lynch v. Clark provided foundational support for this birthright principle. So, Thomas in hand pushes back hard, saying that Americans rejected the feudal English idea that birth on the soil created permanent, lifelong allegiance to the sovereign who controlled the land. Now, we have another case that really, sisters up into this whole entire thing, which Clarence Thomas included in his dissent, which was Ludlam versus Ludlam. That is another case that, a lot of people need to pay attention to. And I'll go ahead and share that here. In Ludlam versus Ludlam in 1863, there's another landmark New York Court of Appeals decision that established the legal principles of dual citizenship and the right of election for children born abroad to American parents. This case centered on a property dispute involving a man born in Peru to an American citizen father and a Peruvian mother. The court ruled on the following key points. Citizenship by blood, also known as jus sanguinis. The court recognized that under U.S. federal law, children born outside the United States to American citizens are considered citizens at birth, regardless of the mother's nationality or the child's place of birth. The right of election, because the child was automatically a citizen of Peru, the place of his birth, the court established that a person born with dual citizenship does not automatically lose their United States citizenship. Instead, they hold the right to choose or elect their allegiance between the two countries within a reasonable time after reaching adulthood, which is, again, something that Clarence Thomas argues. He argues that children of people traveling or sojourning abroad were generally not citizens under the place of birth rule. Now, the New York Political Code of 1860 explicitly excluded children of transient aliens from citizenship. Thomas specifically says in his dissent that it's elevating an obscure, short-lived, and unrepresentative case while ignoring stronger evidence that American law required domicile. Now, I see people in the chat saying domicile. What is domicile? Well, domicile originally in the English law referred to where it is that you were born. That's what domicile was. Now, we get towards post-ratification history and practice support Thomas's view. Thomas emphasized that what happened after the 14th Amendment was ratified, something that courts often look at to understand original meaning. For decades, the executive branch, the State Department and Attorney Generals, routinely denied citizenship claims by children born in the United States to parents who were not domiciled here, right? For example, in 1885, Secretary of State Thomas Bayard wrote that a child born in the United States to parents domiciled abroad was not a citizen of the United States by birth because they wasn't here, right? Multiple scholars and treaties after 1868 continued to say that children of transient or temporary aliens were not citizens. Even after Wong Kim Ark, which is in 1898, which I can go ahead and pull that up right quick because I want you to actually be able to see the things that I'm talking about. Here we are right here. United States versus Wong Kim Ark in 1898 is a landmark Supreme Court case. In a 6-2 decision, the court ruled that anyone born on United States soil is an American citizen under the 14th Amendment, regardless of their parents' nationality or immigration status. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco in 1873 to parents who were Chinese citizens. At the time, Chinese immigrants were barred from becoming U.S. citizens under the Chinese Exclusion Act. In 1895, after returning from a temporary visit to China, Wong was denied re-entry into the United States by immigration officials who argued that the child of Chinese nationals could not be born or could not be considered an American citizen. Wong challenged this decision, leading to a historic Supreme Court ruling. On March 28, 1898, the Supreme Court declared that the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment applies to all persons born in the United States. The court ruled that temporality, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard word mentioning that. Hard time pronouncing that word. Being born on American soil automatically confers birthright citizenship. This decision cemented birthright citizenship into United States law, protecting the children of immigrants from being denied their fundamental rights based on their heritage or their parents' origin. So, just to give you all a little bit of background on that really quick, let's switch back over to the dissent. So, let me read a little bit of the dissent right quick, right? So we can get to where we are. Like I said, this is the Trump president of the United States et al. Versus Barbara. So the question presented is whether the Constitution guarantees citizenship to children born in the United States of parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present in the country. Under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So, like I said, just a few days ago, they had a ruling on this. Let's watch.
And it's a big one. It has to do with birthright citizenship. It was an executive order that President Trump, on day one of his second term in January 2025, signed the executive order. It was immediately challenged. And now we can tell you that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled against President Trump's order to limit birthright citizenship. Shannon, we have talked for some time about the president feeling that he would not win on this one. The question is, why not?
Okay. Right off the bat, it says children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause. So look how this broke down. As we expected, the Chief Justice wrote this opinion. Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Barrett, and Jackson joined. Jackson has a concurring opinion in which Sotomayor joins. Justice Kavanaugh files an opinion concurring in the judgment and dissenting in part. The dissent comes from Justice Thomas. He is joined by Gorsuch, Alito, and then Justice Gorsuch apparently has his own dissenting opinion. So it is what we expected after the arguments here. And it looks like a bit of a split, but enough of a plurality coming together to say that the executive order that the president issued very quickly upon taking office is no good. And that if people are here, subject to the jurisdiction thereof includes people who are here illegally. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice Roberts says this: citizenship then and now was the right to have rights to freely participate in our political community. Talking about the 14th Amendment, the framers of the 14th Amendment extended that promise to every freeborn person in this land. That's a quote, and it looks like it's a quote back to some of the legislative debate about this in Congress. He says we keep that promise today. So a loss probably expected by the Trump White House, but it is official and it's a thick one. So we'll keep reading.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's bring in Jonathan Turley. President Trump went to this argument. It didn't go as they would like, and you have some thoughts as to why. Go ahead.
Well, this is exactly what some of us predicted after the oral argument. Chief Justice Roberts said rather pointedly when counsel noted that things have changed in the citizenship area and how people become citizens. Roberts pointedly said, well, the Constitution hasn't changed. And that is reflected in this opinion. It is a roaring decision in favor of birthright citizenship as contained within the 14th Amendment. That is despite the countervailing evidence of some of the drafters of that amendment that they did not want this to be something that would cover birthright citizenship. Now, having said that, there are very good arguments on both sides here, good faith arguments. And I'm just reading through the Roberts decision today, but it is a very comprehensive and good faith argument. What is left here is a decision for the country as to whether it wants to examine a constitutional amendment. Some countries that have had birthright citizenship got rid of it because many of us believe it's an incredibly ill-considered policy. we can make that decision as well. But we're going to have that debate, and we're going to have to agree. We really haven't had a national debate on this. This has largely been contained within the court system, and it may be time for us as a country to decide how we define citizenship.
All right, 14th Amendment ratified in 1868. Back to Shannon Bream for the view from Justice Thomas, who was a dissenter here. Shannon.
Yeah, in his dissent, he gets to that point, Bill, that you're making there. The 14th Amendment was enacted in the wake of the Civil War, quote, with the one pervading purpose of securing equal citizenship for the freed slaves. He writes, it was enacted, as Justice Harlan wrote, to secure to a race recently emancipated the civil rights that other citizens enjoyed. So Thomas has always been about that was the purpose of the 14th Amendment. He goes on to say that the court, meaning the majority now, has repurposed the 14th Amendment to protect its own set of preferred rights that the Reconstruction Congress never contemplated and that cannot find support in the text. Today, the court does so by recognizing a constitutional right to citizenship for the children of all foreign birth tourists and illegal aliens. He uses very specific language there. Again, Justice Thomas adhering and agreeing with the government's argument, which they made here very passionately, that the 14th Amendment was about protecting the children of freed slaves and not what we've come to understand it as. You see his language there. He mentions birth tourism. It came up in the arguments, and clearly that's a very big concern of the dissenters. We also have dissents by Justice Alito and others, so we'll read those as well.
All right, thank you so much. Let's bring in Hugh Hewitt, of course. He has the Hugh Hewitt Show and a Fox News contributor with his reaction this morning. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Dana. My reaction this morning is I'm not surprised by any of these decisions. I would have agreed with were I in the court with all three of them. I think the Chief Justice has hit it out of the park on the birthright citizenship issue, and we finally have a decision that lays to rest this endless debate that text, history, and tradition in fact affirm if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. I love Justice Kavanaugh's clarity on the boys and girls sports. He simply says the Equal Protection Clause allows states to do what they want to do to protect women. And as to the third case on campaign funding, Karl Rove, the architect, had it exactly right. It strengthens parties. It makes parties much more vibrant. And so I think from my perspective, it's 3-0 for the Constitution today. Now, I know some people, as a matter of policy, as Professor Turley just put out, would like to amend the Constitution to change the citizenship to prevent against birthright citizenship. We can pass a law to tighten up visa. We can secure the border like President Trump has done. But the Constitution is pretty easy to understand. It was written by farmers for farmers. I like to tell that to my con law students every single year. There's nothing magic about this if you just simply read the document, text, history, and tradition. So I think it's a 3-0 day for the Supreme Court, and they can go home and enjoy their summer.
Wow. Okay.
Well, and I appreciate all of the commentary that everyone is doing in the chat is greatly appreciated. But we have a prime example of why it is that this birthright citizenship argument is even standing on the laurels that it's standing on today. And that is because of videos like this.
No, please don't beg me. She's in an advanced state of pregnancy. It's quite common for pregnant ladies to travel overseas so that they can have the baby in whichever country to automatically get that passport. What's your final destination today?
No, today. Today, London.
Okay.
So I'm going to the US tomorrow.
You're going to the US tomorrow, okay. When you went for your American visa, did you tell the visa officer that you were pregnant?
No.
You didn't? No. Okay. Is there any reason why you didn't tell the visa officer that you were pregnant?
It didn't come up.
It didn't come up. Okay, what I'm going to do is...
The woman is only 7 weeks away from giving birth, yet has decided to visit her sister in America, claiming she will return 3 weeks before her due date.
It says that you're fit to travel. Babies born in the UK don't automatically qualify for a British passport, but babies born in the US do automatically qualify for an American passport. So it's quite common for pregnant ladies to travel overseas so that they can have the baby in whichever country to automatically get that passport.
Sarah is suspicious of the woman's motive for travelling to the US via the UK, but she could also be in breach of airline regulations for travelling whilst pregnant.
When is she due?
5th of June.
When is her return?
16th of May. So she's got 3 weeks between her return date and her due date, which makes her 37 weeks pregnant, which is over every airline's limit.
The woman is in breach of the airline's policy, but as she has a valid US visa, Sarah must now contact the US Embassy.
Hi, it's Sarah. I'm at the airport at the moment. I just wondered if you could give a call to the American Embassy so that they can check an American visa for me. She's at the airport today and she's in an advanced state of pregnancy. So if you can just give them a call and find out if they're happy with that. And if so, then we can let her travel.
It's minutes before the flight leaves, but whether or not the pregnant woman will be on board is up to the US Embassy.
Right, okay. All right, I'll do that then. Okay, thanks very much. All right, thank you, bye-bye. Okay, that was the American Embassy and they want to speak to her today.
The flight will be leaving without the pregnant woman. Now Sarah must tell her the news.
So what I've done is I've contacted the visa man and explained your situation. What he'd like to do is can you go back to the embassy here in Lagos, show him all this paperwork, and he'll want to speak to you. I'm sorry, I know it's frustrating, but if you can go back to him, because Madam, please, I'm begging. No, please don't beg me. Please don't beg me. No, Madam, please don't beg me.
The pregnant woman did not make it to the USA. When she failed to turn up at the American Embassy, her visa was cancelled.
Now, it is primarily because of videos like this where this woman was trying to come to the United States and she was literally trying to have exactly an anchor baby, right? And because of this fact that she could have given birth to this child here in the United States of America is exactly why it is that we're talking about the Wong Kim Ark case and why it is that Justice Thomas in his dissent even started bringing up or referencing the fact of the birthright citizenship argument. So Thomas notes that the Wong Kim Ark court repeatedly emphasized the parents' domicile, that the case never squarely decided the question of temporary visitors or illegal immigrants. He argues the majority is improperly elevating what's the best way for me to say this? The dictionary or the terminology or the verbiage from the Wong Kim Ark case while ignoring the actual facts and limiting language in that opinion. Wong's parents weren't temporary visitors. They lived in the United States permanently. So you can't use Wong Kim Ark's case and the discussion when it talks to birthright citizenship because his parents was originally from the United States. So they wasn't temporary visitors. They were residents of the United States of America. So the case doesn't answer the question that is presented here. Now, there was a few people who went against what it is that Justice Thomas has said in his dissent. Justice Harlan's in his famous dissent in the Plessy versus Ferguson case, which that's another case that we need to pay attention to. When we look at Plessy versus Ferguson, All right, cool. There we go. Thank you. And Plessy versus Ferguson case, which is another landmark Supreme Court decision that established the legal doctrine of separate but equal. The 7-1 ruling upheld state-sponsored racial segregation under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, paving the way for decades of systemic Jim Crow laws. Now, Justice Harlan, often praised by originalists, interpreted the Citizenship Clause as giving citizenship to those born or naturalized in the United States and residing here. Thomas also cites that slaughterhouse cases, which was 1873, where the court suggested the clause did not extend to children of foreign subjects born in the United States. He warns that the majority's broad reading creates practical and national security problems by granting citizenship based solely on physical presence at birth, regardless of the parent's status or ties to the country. Justice Thomas concludes that the original public meaning of the Citizenship Clause requires domicile in addition to birth on U.S. soil, because many applications of President Trump's executive order are consistent with the original meaning. Justice Thomas believes that the court should not have struck it down in full, and that's where he respectfully dissents. Now, in short, Thomas argues that the majority adopted an overly broad liberal historical reading of the clause that ignores how the 19th century Americans actually understood citizenship. And this is very important. This is why I must touch on this. It is extremely important because of the fact that when it comes down to it, you're taking the 19th century American and you're trying to use their understanding of the word citizenship, and you're trying to broadenize it with a 2026 understanding or evolutionization of the language, and trying to make it to where now those who are coming into the United States of America, breaching its borders illegally and giving birth on our soil, now all of a sudden they're American citizens. That's a problem. Something tied to permanent membership in the political community, not mere presence on soil. Now, really quick, I want to take this time to say this, right? This is a huge debate that is going on all across America, not just on a social level, not just a political level, but even in an economic level, right? Because we all understand that the primary reason that a specific group or political party is fighting for birthright citizenship is because of cheap labor. But the problem is this: they're trying to change the understanding, or they're trying to ratify the 14th Amendment, which was originally drafted for slaves. And that's the biggest problem. Let's continue really quick. So, under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump issued Executive Order number 14160, titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. The order provides that children born in the United States of parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present here are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And this is why it is extremely important that people go look at these cases, right? Really quick, I see there's a few questions in the chat. Nita says, I think we knew they would rule against Trump's executive order. The purpose of it was to open the door for Congress to write a law for the meaning of birthright citizenship. Well, yes, in more ways than one, yes. What they're trying to do is they wanted to make it to where you pay attention to what President Biden did at the time, where he pretty much blew the doors off of the border. He blew the border wide open. And all of these people were able to come into the country, and some of these people were pregnant, or some of these people became pregnant, and they were trying to, in more ways than one, gain citizenship by way of their children. And because of the temporary protected statuses that the Biden administration had allowed these people, a lot of these people were trying to stay. This is why the government got shut down last year, right? This is one of the main reasons why government got shut down last year, is because they were trying to fight for the right for illegal aliens to be American citizens and get health care. Like I told y'all last year, the biggest problem with all of this is just that the Democratic Party needs a new voting base. And since the Democratic Party needs a new voting base, they're trying to do everything that they can to not, I wouldn't go as far as to say replace American citizens, although I can have an extremist perspective and say that's what they're trying to do. In more ways than one, what they're trying to do, they're trying to strengthen and even overpopulate their voting base so that they have a new voting base, which would be the illegal aliens. Nunya says, how do we naturalize a 1 hour old infant? Well, that's the problem for the debate. The problem for the debate is that I'm an American citizen. I was born here in the United States of America, in Detroit, Michigan. My parents are from the United States of America. They were born here in the United States of America. My grandparents and my great grandparents, and so on and so forth and so forth and so forth, right? So I, born here in America, I am a naturalized citizen. The problem is, let me just pick someone out the chat. Anybody want to volunteer out the chat? I'll pick Ravenwolf. Ravenwolf, let's say Ravenwolf was born in Nigeria, right? Let's say Ravenwolf's parents were born in Nigeria, but Ravenwolf's parents are on temporary protected status and they're here in America, and now Ravenwolf is born here in America. I'll ask y'all in the chat. Does that mean now that Ravenwolf is a citizen of the United States of America, or is she naturally a citizen of Nigeria, but she's also now a citizen of America? Which jurisdiction does she fall up under? Or he or she, I'm sorry, I don't know your gender. He or she, right? That's the biggest problem, because now if Ravenwolf, be it that it's a man or a woman, if Ravenwolf is born here as a citizen of the United States of America, what do we do with its parents? What do we do with Ravenwolf's parents? Are they now citizens as well, or do they go back to their country and they leave the baby here? You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? Nita says the solution is not to naturalize a 1-hour-old child if their parents are not citizens of the United States of America. Facts. That's a big fact. And that's the point of debate, right? Minnie says Melania Trump was not a citizen when she gave birth to Barron, although she held a green card. Barron was given citizenship as birth. Is there a problem with that? There could be a problem with that. It's all in how it is that this debate comes about when it comes to birthright citizenship. But the Birthright Citizenship Clause, or rather the Citizenship Clause, was specifically brought up under the 14th Amendment, right? This is what we need to discuss. So let's continue. So there are and thus do not qualify for citizenship under the 14th Amendment or the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is the INA, which uses the same language. 90 Federal Reg 8449. Several parents filed suit, some in the name of their children, arguing that the executive order violates the 14th Amendment and the INA. The district court agreed provisionally certify a nationwide class of children who would be denied citizenship by the order and preliminarily enjoined the order's enforcement. This court granted certiorari before judgment. Now, what's being held is children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizen at birth under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause. Now, this is important because this is what they upheld. They upheld the fact that if you are born here, you are a citizen of this country. Not a problem. Yellow says, if you are born here, you are a citizen of this country. Why is it so difficult to understand? Hey, Yellow, I have a question for you. Let's say Cellulite Podcast, let's say my parents are from Nigeria and my parents come here on temporary protected status or a visa. And now I'm born here. Now I'm a United States citizen. What happens, in your opinion, with my parents? I'm going to ask everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat. My parents are from Nigeria. Let's just say, for hypothetically speaking, my parents are from Nigeria and they come here to America and my mother gives birth to me. Now I'm an American citizen. What should happen to my parents? Should my parents, when their temporary protected status is over, should they be forced to go back to their country, or should they be allowed to stay here only because I am, as an American citizen, I am here? That's my question to everybody, right? Mrs. Dickenhouse says 2 non-citizens should not be able to create a citizen. Unfortunately, we do now allow for this to happen. Pregnancy tourism for non-citizens from all over the world. Facts. The real McCoy says plenty of land, give them citizenship. That is what the court system. Well, that's now y'all understand. And I'm glad. Thank you, Yolo, by the way, for answering that. And now y'all understand what the big debate is about, because now the big debate is that under President Biden, there were a slew, it's a vast amount of immigrants illegally entering the country. And now they have children here. So they came into the country, then they had children. Now we're supposed to give them citizenship just because you successfully made it into the country illegally and you gave birth to a child here. Well, here's also the problem, right? And I think this is a problem for debate too. Now, those parents who came from these third world underdeveloped countries, they come into the country with little to no money, And they're coming here now, and as American taxpayers, we have to foot the bill for the baby, and also our tax dollars are going to go to taking care of this family until they get back on their feet. That's the big problem, right? And also, we're affording them amenities and rights that they do not naturally have because they are not U.S. citizen residents. They are not citizens of this country. Our Constitution is supposed to be for our Constitution, for our country, not for people outside of our country, right? What's going on? Happy 250. Appreciate you, Dirty Buddy. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. So that's what the big debate is about. Because the big debate is that we are going to be just allowing anyone to come into this country and just have an anchor baby, and now they become a United States citizen. Why are they then afforded more, if the same, if not more, benefits than us who are born here as natural citizens? Right. In and Out says no other countries give citizenship to be born on their land. That's the big problem. Yellow says if immigrants are working here paying taxes and the government rounds them up and ships them out, what happens to their contributions? Well, here's another big problem, Yellow, and I appreciate you for introducing that question. If the citizens were not allowed to be, if the illegal aliens were not allowed to be here and be able to work and pay taxes, then they should go back to their country, right? If those illegal aliens are here and they're working here and they're paying taxes into our system, great, not a problem. But now we have the problem with the law. Should we ship them and their contributions out the country with them? Well, the big problem is this. If they would have stayed back home in their country, and they made these contributions to their country, maybe their country wouldn't be underdeveloped. Maybe their country would be better off. Am I making I think I'm doing a pretty good job at keeping it one-to-one. Am I confusing anybody? If I'm confusing you, just put a 1 in the chat. If I'm not confusing you, just put a 2. All right. 7 Up says, but the immigrants are not paying taxes. They're sending the money back home to their country. 7 Up. That's a great point. This is one of the big point of contentions which happened in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, that was the grounds for what the Somalians were doing. What the Somalians were doing, they was flying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars out of the country back to their country. Yellow says, understand that billions of dollars are being deported. I understand that. But the problem is this. Had we not opened the gateway up to allow these illegal aliens to come into this country and then be able to have a baby here, and now automatically they're United States citizens, why are they afforded amenities and benefits that us as United States citizens are not even afforded, right? Some of the arguments that's being made about food stamps, about healthcare, about housing and equal opportunity when it comes to work, a lot of these things was really stemming from that argument. I was born here in the United States of America. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. My family ties go all the way back to pre-Civil War days. I've done the lineage on it. But the problem is that I was born in 1989. I've had to work for the majority of the money that I have made since my birth. I've never been on food stamps. I've never been on Medicare. I've never received any type of benefits from the government other than the time when I was in the United States Army, since I'm a vet. But a child born here from illegal parents, they're given a lot of amenities that I was not offered at my birth. So why should they be offered? Do you understand? This is the point of contention, right? This is the argument that is being happened. As a matter of fact, when we was having this discussion a long time ago on one of my earlier shows, this is what happens.
Raggedy as hell that my people had to fight like hell just to get the 14th Amendment, only for you liberal fucks to apply it to a bunch of people that just got here. I'm sick and tired of other people skipping the damn line where black folks in this country still be dealing with goofy ass shit. And we got to hear about, the Mexicans, and everybody else in the goddamn world.
So that was one of the big contentions and big points of argument, that we're just allowing people to come into this country, and not just people who look like me, but you have a lot of people who was born in this country that have been fighting in this country. They have bled for this country. They have sweated for this country. And it's a lot of things that we're not awarded just because we made it here or just because we was born here. But an illegal alien couple can come here and they can give birth to a child, and now they're awarded open access to the country. Now they have open access to what's the best way I can say this? Oh, they have access to the treasure chest without putting in the work. Do we have any gamers in the chat? Let me ask this question. Hey, Treese, what's going on, sister? Do we have any gamers in the chat? Put a 1 in the chat if you play video games. Anybody? Does anybody play video games? I play video games. It's one of my pastimes that I love to participate in, right? So let me explain it to you like this. I'll break this down like we're all gamers, right? Let's say it's 156 of in here. If it's 156 of us in here right now, right? Let's say we all go into a dungeon, and in this dungeon, we're all level 50, right? And in this dungeon, there's a level 99 boss, okay? And we all put in the work. We're using our healing items. We're using our skills. We're retreating from the fight so we can re-up our stocks, get our resources back, go back into the fight. Some of us are healers. Some of us are combatants. We have support units and all this, that, and the other. But then, while we got maybe 10% of the boss's health removed, now here comes this wave of rookies, these level 1 characters, right? All of these level 1 characters come, and while we are fighting this level 99 dragon, all of these level 1 characters are standing off to the side. They're not cheering. They're not participating in the boss fight. They're not using healing items. They're just there. So finally, we defeat the dragon boss, right? But here's the problem. The rewards from defeating that boss are not just spread out to the 156 of us that's in this chat, but the rewards are now also spread out to all of those millions of level 1 rookies. So we get less and they get more, and we haven't put in no work, and we put in all the work and they didn't put in no work, right? They're just waiting for the loot, right? It's also another form of scalping. They're getting all of the reward and have not put in, there's no skin in the game for them. This is the biggest problem when it comes to the birthright citizenship argument. Why should they enjoy the reward of being a United States citizen when they've put no skin in the game? All right. Really quick, let's continue with the dissent. Right there. We're going to do this one. Yellow says, we can afford it. How much money has this administration waiting on the absolute nonsense? This president of peace has seriously not kept any of his promises. The waste is insane. These shiny objects they keep dangling in front of you guys is working. Understand? I understand that, but can you get with the analogy that I gave? Is that we are all fighting this level 99 boss, and we're using all of our resources to stay in the fight. But these millions of level 1 rookies come out of nowhere, and they're now able to reap the benefits of the fight. When we defeat the boss, they now get access to the treasure chest. Is that fair? Is that fair? Okay, so let's continue. The Citizenship Clause must be understood in light of its historical context, from the English common law to the widespread condemnation of the court's decision in Dred v. Scott versus Scanford. Under the English common law, children born within the sovereign's dominions owed a natural allegiance to the sovereign who protected them at birth. Blackstone Commentaries on the Laws of England, 354 and 356, Blackstone, regardless of how momentary and uncertain their presence, which is from Calvin's case, such children were therefore natural-born subjects. The same rule applied to the children born of parents subject to expulsion. The rule's exceptions were narrow. Children born in lands the sovereign did not control children born in areas temporarily outside the sovereign's control, and children of foreign ministers by a fiction of extraterritoriality. Sorry, that's a big ass word. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to read that word. I was trying. Right. Yellow says immigrants are entitled to what the rest of us are. Imagine having an issue with supporting babies. It's wrong. Yellow, would you like to come up and join the panel? We can have a easier discussion. That way I don't have to read the chat. Yellow, if you like to come and join the panel, just let me know. I can place the link for you so you can come up and join. Minnie says the liberalization of immigration from countries whose residents were initially not allowed was also secured by the civil rights efforts of a black people never given restitution for stolen labor. That's a big fact. That's a huge fact, Minnie. That's the reason of the analogy that I gave. The analogy that I gave is that there's a treasure chest with benefits, rewards, and amenities in it, and we're fighting for it. But then here come the million rookies, and now when the boss is dead, now here comes the rookie saying, hey, we should get some of that reward too. See what I'm saying? Anyway, this common law of citizenship, known as jus soli, which is the law of the land, law of soil, or the right to the soil, crossed the Atlantic and prevailed in each and all of the states after American independence. Kent Commentaries on American Law 39, the rule was applied even to the novel situation of quasi-sovereign Indian tribes who maintained the dominions of their own, such that Indians born under those dominions were not citizens, but members of alien and sovereign tribes. That's in Goodell versus Jackson. Yellow, if you say, is this a discussion? You can join the panel if you want to. It's not a one-sided discussion. There's the link. The link is there if you want to come up. All you have to do is click the link. Right? 70 says immigrants are entitled that from their slave owner, America was not their slave owners, Spain and Portugal was. That's a fact. It's a big fact. Right? It's a big fact. Let's continue. In Goodell versus Jackson and Smith versus Johns, in a nation of immigrants, jus soli's broad scope took on particular importance, assuring that children of foreigners, including those here on a temporary sojourn, which is Lynch v. Clark, would be American citizens by birth alone. In Dred Scott versus Stanford, the court departed from the common law and adapted the view that blood, not soil, determines citizenship. And that's a big factor in this whole entire discussion. That it should not be based upon where you're born as far as soil. It should be based on your blood. It held that those descendants from slaves could not be citizens. The decision was met with shock. The impending crisis, writings of Abraham Lincoln and abolitionists swore to undo what the court has done. Right? In the midst of the Civil War, Attorney General Edward Bates issued a landmark opinion, citing key authorities, including Calvin's case and Kent's commentaries, rejecting the premise that citizenship is ever hereditary, which is important, right? 1 second, y'all. Somebody's asking for the link to come up. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Post. And here we go. This. And we're going to do this. And we're going to do this. And we're going to do this. There we go. All right, cool. All right, so if you want to join the panel, you can join the panel by clicking this blue link right here, and you can join the panel. All I ask is that you come up here and you be respectful of YouTube's terms of services and community guidelines so that we can actually have a real discussion and not a yelling match. But you're more than welcome to join the panel. Now, how do I support the show? You can support the show by a multitude of ways. If you wish to support the show and you need the link, just request it from one of the moderators in the chat. But moderators only drop the link to the support if they request it. So Let's continue. Where are we at? Okay, and declaring that every person born in the country is, at the moment of birth, prima facie a citizen, without any reference to race or color. The exceptions were few. The small and admitted class of the natural born composed of the children of foreign ministers and the like. Following the war, Congress sought to turn Bates' opinion into law by enacting the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which made citizens of all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed. The act was simply assuming to invoke the common law rule, which came from England. The 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause mirrored the common law's criteria for citizenship. Starting with a territory, a child must be born in the United States, and ending with sovereign power, a child must be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. A child born on American soil and subject to American law was made an American citizen. That's literally how it breaks down. It breaks down just like that. You're born here, you're born on this soil, you're subject to American law.
In his dissent, this is the losing side, unfortunately. But he says, okay, this is how the majority looks at things. He says the majority, their account of birthright citizenship is roughly as follows. After American independence, the British rule of birthright subjecthood was modified in just one way, to take account of Indians, as you point out, Mike, who lived under tribal governance. But otherwise, the rule was transplanted intact to American soil. As modified, the rule was that a child born in this country is automatically an American citizen unless the child's born to tribal Indians or to a diplomat with immunity from legal process. During the period before the Civil War, the rule's status was firm. After the war, Congress codified the rule in the 14th Amendment. And it goes on from there. Then Alito writes, every step of this story is incorrect. The Declaration of Independence repudiated the foundation on which the British rule was based. Right. From 1776 until the eve of the Civil War, the status of the rule in this country was unsettled. There's no evidence establishing that the Constitution's references to citizens incorporated the British rule. And until the eve of the Civil War, there was little litigation about the meaning of American citizenship. After the war, Congress finally adopted a constitutional provision, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, making certain persons citizens at birth. But that provision differed substantially from the British rule. It specified that a person born here is not a citizen unless his allegiance to the United States is unimpaired by any obligations to a foreign power. And that's exactly right. That's what else does subject to the jurisdiction thereof mean? He's trying to say that there was another provision in there. And I will say, one of the scholars on this issue has argued all along that the justices would not come down on the right side of this because they'd be afraid. They'd be afraid of being called racists, right? Because the 14th Amendment is more limited than some of its proponents are now arguing, and that it would take incredible temerity to come down against it. And what do we see? We see the squishiest conservatives, Mike, fly the coop, right? It's like, did anybody ever doubt Alito and Thomas? And Gorsuch showing some spine here too. But let's face it, Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Roberts are always the ones we're worried about.
Well, I would say this. My old boss, Justice Neil Gorsuch, came out very good on all of these cases at the end of the term. So I'm very happy, proud, quietly relieved. I agree with you. He got Bostock wrong, but he has been rock solid on these cases. I would say this: if Clarence Thomas, who grew up in the segregated South and faced unbelievable Jim Crow discrimination, can write that the 14th Amendment applied to the children of the freed slaves, but the white liberals from Washington, like John Roberts, can't. That shows you who has maybe a more bold and fearless view of their job as a justice of the Supreme Court. They have lifetime tenure. They have pay protection for a reason. Their job is to follow the law. It's to make them less popular when they follow the law and they follow the law and the majority doesn't like it. It's I think with the Chief Justice and Justice Barrett, I think they're looking to become more popular. I think it's become a vanity project for them. One of my lawyer friends sent me this, and I think she is spot on. The Chief Justice thought he was writing the next he was writing the next Brown versus Board of Education decision.
That's a fact. That's a big fact. A lot of this is by popularity, right? That's one of the big contentions when it comes to this whole argument about birthright citizenship, because are they arguing according to the law, or as we like to say over here, are you arguing to a point, or are you arguing for popularity? If you're not arguing for the truth, then you're arguing to a point. If you're arguing for popularity, then you're just trying to say whatever it is that is safe so that people do not challenge your perspective or your beliefs. The biggest problem with this is that the majority that ruled against Trump's executive order, they're not doing this according to the law. They're doing this according to what is their popular belief, right? So really quick, because I want to get up to what Chip Roy, what he said about this whole entire thing.
Should act swiftly to say we're not going to fund this false notion of who citizens are. If the Supreme Court of the United States in its infinite wisdom says that they get to decide as the final arbiter who is or is not a citizen, why should Congress allow people to come into the United States to abuse it, to have children, to take advantage of a citizenship that is not actually allowed under the Constitution? Because
that is a fact, William. William says you're not under the jurisdiction thereof until you take the American oath of citizenship, basically denouncing your citizenship to the country they came from. That is a fact.
The Supreme Court got it wrong. Should those leaders of the other branches comply? Well, Chip, that's absurd. Okay, well, if the Supreme Court issues a ruling that is patently and facially unconstitutional, must the other branches follow it? I say no. We better fix this. This Congress better fix this. Because I have no interest in continuing to fund the operations of a government that has been undermined by the United States Supreme Court. And I say all of that to say that our sovereignty as a nation matters. It's not something that you can just sort of trivially dismiss. And I'm going to make a quick political commentary here and then come back to our celebration of the 250th. I've got about 15 minutes left. And I want to talk about the Supreme Court ruling today because it matters a great deal. Today, the United States Supreme Court issued an opinion that I believe was profoundly misguided and undermines our national security and our sovereignty as a nation in a profoundly damaging way. And I've got friends and people who've debated this issue for years, good friends on both sides of the aisle. And this issue, when I say, I mean the issue is the issue of so-called birthright citizenship. Are you an American citizen for simply and solely being born on American soil? And I remember thinking a long time ago that there was something kind of magical about that concept. That if you're here and you're in America and you're born here, you're an American. But it became clearer and clearer to me as that privilege, it's not a right.
Yes.
I want to come back to that in terms of what the 14th Amendment says.
Yes, the 14th Amendment is a privilege, not a right. Can everybody type privilege, not right in chat?
But that privilege means to be an American. And that it was being abused. It was being abused by people for profit and being abused by people for some sort of monetary benefit or a benefit of some social welfare or a benefit of going to a hospital or going to school. All things which I understand as a parent seeking. But we've turned on its head everything that is good and great about our nation. And this opinion today by the United States Supreme Court saying that the 14th Amendment, which was very clearly ratified to deal with the issue of slavery, in a post-slavery world, to whom do these former slaves now owe allegiance?
And that's the point. And that's the point. That's the big problem. For those who fought in the Civil War, for those who fought against slavery, now that they're free, who do they owe allegiance to? Do they owe allegiance to America? Do they owe allegiance to only the North? Do they owe allegiance to the South? Who do they owe allegiance to?
And to factor that into determining how you define our character as we're adopting the 14th Amendment, it was very clear that subject to the jurisdiction thereof was meant to deal with that. And for 5 Supreme Court justices today to manufacture in whole cloth that the 14th Amendment ratified in the 1860s, in 1868, that somehow conferred upon someone citizenship because a parent came to the United States and birthed the child on American soil, despite not being a citizen and despite not having any allegiance to the United States, is not just appalling, but it begs who we are as a nation. The Chief Justice, no doubt, and Justice Barrett and the other 3 justices that joined that opinion, no doubt believe they were doing some sort of great service by trying to establish that this means some great thing for the United States. I would argue that what they're doing is destroying the United States, because you no longer have a sovereign nation. If you're telling the world that all you have to do is flout our laws, break our laws, come to our country and have a child, and that child gets to have citizenship, which has things conferred upon it, voting and other privileges and access to welfare benefits, then all of those who bled and died for this great nation, to just hand that over in violation of the entire text, spirit, letter of the Constitution of the 14th Amendment, is detrimental to our Republican form of government.
And that's a fact. That's why this debate is so heavily weighed, right? It's heavily weighed because what you're arguing for is that just because they make it here, they should be our citizens. Just because they make it here, they should be amended with our amenities. Just because they make it here, they should be welcomed and be a part of our economy and be a part of our healthcare system. Just because they made it here, just because they make it here, they should get our benefits. When those who are born here, we rarely get access to the benefits that's supposed to be available to us. It's kind of a shallow form of the argument, but that's literally the argument, right? Wayne says, dude, the Constitution doesn't allow for any other interpretation. Change the Constitution. Don't blame the Supreme Court of the United States. Right, that's a fact. Dr. Manhattan, what's going on, big homie? Also, hello, Tammy. How you doing? Right? Appreciate that. That's an economic problem, not an immigration problem. Well, you're absolutely right. That is. But you know what the big problem is? If immigration was fixed, if all the problems that we have with immigration was fixed, that will also, it's a trickle down effect, right? A lot of y'all, if you're familiar with trickle down effect, just put a 1 in the chat, right? If you know what the trickle down effect is, put a 1 in the chat. If you fix the problem with immigration, we won't be having this conversation about birthright citizenship. But if you blow the doors off of immigration and you just allow anyone to just come into the country, it's going to mess up the economy. And that's what the argument is, because those who just come into the country should not be allowed to work or to be within this country and be given amenities and benefits that those of us who's been here. You see what I'm saying? So we need to have a deeper discussion about this.
Roberts emphasizing, quote, children born of parents unlawfully or temporarily present in the United States satisfy both elements of the Citizenship Clause under the Constitution. He concluded they are citizens at birth.
Mm-hmm.
That is false. The Supreme Court majority ruled that illegal aliens invading our country having U.S.-born children is somehow legally sound, even though the Justice in Wong Kim Ark rejected that notion.
And that's literally what I was just telling y'all about. I'm so glad that I love to do research and actually introduce these things to y'all. That was the whole entire argument and the premise. But the problem with the Wong Kim Ark case is that the Wong Kim Ark's parents were United States citizens. They just left and came back. That's the big problem.
This is something that has been debated for a long time. But when we think about this, an estimated 124,000 to 300,000 anchor babies, which are children born to illegal aliens, are born each year. In 2023, up to 250,000 children were born to illegal aliens, which accounted for 7% of total births.
Yep.
I cannot imagine that if you told those men that were sitting in the foxholes in Bastogne and they were storming the beaches in Normandy to scale the cliffs, have bullets firing at them, that they would say, yeah, sure, let's turn over the country and our sovereignty as a nation to anyone who comes onto our soil and just tries to claim it. And it's being abused by our adversaries to undermine our national security.
That's a fact.
The fact is, the United States Congress cannot just sit idly by and allow the Supreme Court to do this. People say, well, Chip, separation of powers. Supreme Court's going to get the final word on what the law is. Well, I would tell you that the Supreme Court has clearly made significant errors in judgment in the past. No one need look too far to figure out what that is. Plessy. There's been other opinions. Roe versus Wade, which court has now rightly gone a different direction. But I would argue that the Congress needs to react swiftly and make very clear that we define what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means.
Really quick, Yellow says citizens of China. Yes, Wong Kim Ark's parents were immigrants from China who legally resided and worked as merchants in San Francisco. Both parents were subjects of the Emperor of China and were never employed in any official or diplomatic capacity for the Chinese government. They immigrated to the U.S. in the mid-1800s, living and conducting business in San Francisco's Chinatown for about 15 to 20 years. So, according to the law, they were naturally. I appreciate you. Thank you, Matthew, for showing love on the Cash App. Greatly appreciate you. If y'all want to show support, it's greatly appreciated. You know how to do so. If not, just request the Cash App and someone will drop the Cash App name in the chat so that way you can support the show. But it's greatly appreciated. And also, because I had to go ahead and say that out loud and give thanks to that, let me go ahead and say this as well. That one right there, and then I need this banner right here. This channel abides by all of YouTube's community guidelines and its terms of services, and the commentary is for adults only and not intended to bully or harass anyone based on their political, religious, or nationality backgrounds and or beliefs nor perspectives that they have. With respect to everyone in the chat, it is greatly appreciated that everyone is here, but we are gratefully appreciative to everyone who supports the channel in a monetarily way. Although we are not promoting it, we are still grateful for it. Thank you. To those who know why I'm saying that, you know why I'm saying that. To the new ones who don't know why I'm saying that, just get with the program. You'll get it eventually. Yellow says, so back to my point, this has been beat to death. It shouldn't even be an issue anymore. Trump has got his base hating every flipping one. Well, Yellow, here's, and I appreciate your perspective on this, Yellow, but here's the thing. I think personally, this is just me. If I'm in a country fighting against this country, right? Let's say I'm in Yugoslavia, right? Just for hypothetical sake. Let's say I'm in Yugoslavia and I am a soldier fighting against the Yugoslavian army. Should the Yugoslavian citizens, should they be coming to our country and giving birth on our soil, knowing that me and my detachment, my regiment is out there fighting against their country? Should their citizens be allowed to come into our country and then become U.S. citizens just because they be of birth here? The problem with that ideal is this. We just bombed the hell out of Yugoslavia. And now their citizens are coming to our country. In 20 years, they may want to take revenge. But this is why we need a stricter and harder immigration system. It's not about hating them. It's about national security. But that's just my perspective. Let's continue.
That Congress should act swiftly to say we're not going to fund this false notion of who citizens are. And thirdly, that we're going to just pause immigration. If the Supreme Court of the United States, in its infinite wisdom, says that they get to decide as the final arbiter who is or is not a citizen, then why should Congress allow people to come into the United States to abuse it, to have children, to take advantage of a citizenship that is not actually allowed under the Constitution because the Supreme Court got it wrong? If the Supreme Court were to order or interpret the law that the President of the United States or the Speaker of the House or the Majority Leader of the Senate needs to appear before them unclothed to report to the Supreme Court, should those leaders of the other branches comply? Well, Chip, that's absurd. Okay, well, if the Supreme Court issues a ruling that is patently and facially unconstitutional, must the other branches follow it? I say no. I say no. Well, Chip, that's a controversial opinion. I don't think so. The Constitution of the United States does not stand for the proposition that the court ruled today. It simply does not. I think even basic reading of the Constitution would make that clear. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, both excoriating the majority opinion, made sure that it's very clear how wrong their opinion was. But to make that determination begs the question of what this body, Article 1, must do. Not can do, must do. This is the people's house. I can tell you that the people that I represent have no interest in continuing to pay taxes to fund people who are coming to the United States to take advantage of our country for profit or for any other motive. They have no interest in doing that. So why should we continue to fund a government that would do that? Like, I can tell you right now that for the decisions I have remaining in my time in Congress in this term, for the remaining of our funding decisions and appropriations, for whatever we're going to do in reconciliation, we better fix this. This Congress better fix this. Because I have no interest in continuing to fund the operations of a government that has been undermined by the United States Supreme Court. We should pause all immigration immediately.
Yes, and see, this is where the uncomfortable part of the argument comes to fruition. If this is not fixed, should we pause all immigration into the United States of America? I'm asking everyone in the chat that question. If we cannot come to an agreement on this issue, which is about immigration, should we pause all immigration? And see, this is something that I asked even last year, right? Something that I asked last year is that if we want to talk about fixing immigration, how do we begin that conversation? Because it's a multitude of problems with the immigration system. One of those problems being that a lot of people are saying that to become a United States citizen is too hard. It's too hard. It's too long. The process is way too long. I said, okay, so let me ask this question, right? If that's just one aspect of the argument, if the process is too long to become a United States citizen, what is a reasonable amount of time to become a United States citizen? I'm asking y'all in the chat, right? I'm asking y'all in the chat. What's a reasonable amount of time? How many years should it be before a person is able to leave their country and become a United States citizen? How many years? I'm asking everyone in the chat, right? Because now the thing is, if they only had to wait 5 years, right? In 5 years, they could become a United States citizen. What does that mean that this country needs to do during that time of those 5 years, right? Because if we do like we did when President Biden was in office, we just opened the country wide up, then guess what? We're going to be dealing with the problems that we're having right now. Mark says 10 years. 10 years sounds reasonable. 10 years sounds like a reasonable amount of time that a person can learn about our country's values, our country morals, our laws. It should learn about our Constitution. That person should learn as much as they possibly can to become a citizen of the United States of America, right? The problem is this. During that time, who's teaching them our laws? Who's teaching them our values? Who's teaching them our concepts? Who's teaching them our morals? Who is teaching them? That's the big problem. And that was one of the arguments that was being made 10, 15, 20, 30, 45, 50 years ago. Because if these people are going to become United States citizens, what if they're coming from a country? What if they're coming from a country that is communist and socialist and completely hates America? Are they teaching them valuable information about our country? Should we be sending Americans to the embassy to teach these people that's going to become United States citizens? This is a big problem. Who's going to front the bill for that? Or rather, should they be allowed to come into our country, work within our systems, be awarded our benefits, and then become United States citizens? You see the problem with these two distinctions? Because one problem is that they stay outside of the country until they get verified and they get cleared to come into the country. And the other one is that they come into the country and they're here until they become a United States citizen. It's two sides of a coin, and this coin is immigration. This is a big problem for everyone. Mr. History Buff says 4 to 5 years in Canada, 6 to 7 years in England. So why should it be a speedy process for America? Right? Mr. History Buff, of course, they should come here first. Okay, so they come here and they're participating within our society. They're participating within our laws. They're getting our benefits. They're getting our amenities and all this, that, and the other. And the people that we let into the country, they haven't been cleared. There was no type of security clearance. There was no type of investigation, no background checks whatsoever. And now we just have a slew of Americans dying because all of these immigrants weren't cleared in their country or cleared by our country. They just was able to, oh, we've already been through this. We have the Biden border policy where everyone was just allowed to come in. And now you just have a slew of Americans losing their lives because these people were not vetted before they came into the country. Simple. Right? It should cost you some skin in the game to become an American citizen. It's costing us skin in the game, right? This is the point of contention. Dirty Money says 10 years if you enter illegally, 4 years if you applied and waited in your home country. That sounds reasonable. Sounds reasonable. King Warren says 5 years and full background financial check. I love it. Full background financial check, 5 years. Cool, no problem. Right? That sounds reasonable, right? And he says, "What are you doing up on the desk? Get down." Dog jumping all over the desk, right? How many years did the original recipients of birthright citizenship have to stay for their citizenship? Well, here's the problem. Birthright citizenship up under the 14th Amendment was for slaves. Dang, they were already here. They fought and they were fighting and dying for for this country. Why would you have to wait to become a citizen in a country that you're already in? Bing. Exactly, Queen. Queen says no, they can't come in until extreme vetting has been done. Facts. And I get it's a moral argument that a lot of people want to weigh in on. Not a problem. We can have those discussions. But the problem is, until we complete those discussions, what should we do about the border? What should we do about immigration? Should we pause immigration, or should we allow these people to just come in and be willy-nilly? This is why the birthright citizenship argument needs to be had, and it needs to find a conclusion. Because if not, we're just going to continue to have the problems that we've been having. But then they know these people become scared in their country because now that the country know that they're denouncing their citizenship to become an American citizen. That's a fact as well, right? That's a fact as well. Oh, you trying to leave us? You trying to go to America? Oh, we got something for you. That's a problem as well. It's a heavy argument that needs to be had. But anywho, I appreciate y'all. We've done our hour 41 for the day. I will catch y'all later at a later time. Y'all take it easy and enjoy y'all day.
I approach him with my hand out. Oh, hand out. I always love the kindness of a stranger. Not a pay pig, 100%. I approach him with my hand out. Hey! I always love the kindness of a stranger. Hey! Not a baby. 100%. 100%. Hey! Not a baby. 100%.